So I downloaded this model from God knows where. I just want to show you how to reset the transform on things, because that's the main thing that makes these models go a bit wonky. So I've got the Jeep body here, and I've been doing it with the setting up the various sort of tires and stuff, and I just want to show you what you might see in various models, right? So if you look at this model here, this particular tire has its pivot point right out over here, and that's definitely not what we want. We want the pivot to be in the center of the tire. So in 3DSMax, you go to the Utilities tab, you select Reset Transform, and before we do that, what you want to do is you go to Effect Pivot and Center to Object. So the pivot point itself is centered inside the selected object. Switch that off and then go to Reset Transform, Reset Selected. And if you go to the modifier stack of that particular object, you'll find that there's an X form on there. Basically that's the sort of reset transform thing. So if we then collapse that, what we want is we want the meshes to be editable polys. So you can always go to here and change them to editable polys if you need to. So what that'll mean is that all of the meshes should be pointed down the positive X. So if you see here, there's the red arrow there is the positive X. So in order to get that exported into Unreal, what we need to do is we go to the schematic view. You see I've renamed all of these things. What's that? What is that? Let's just see what that is. It's somewhere, isn't it? Where is it? Wow. I don't think we need those, do we? Let's delete them. Sod it. Yeah. For some reason, had an object. I probably didn't attach it at the time when I was attaching everything else. So you want your main body of your Jeep to be the sort of center point, right? So you want all of your meshes attached. If you've got your Jeep as an editable poly and you've got any other meshes that are around that you need on the Jeep, you just go and attach and select them in the viewport. So I've attached all of these different meshes, these sub meshes, into the Jeep mesh. And what you need to do now is you go to the Connect tool in the schematic view. So if you go up here, schematic view, and then connect all of these tires to the Jeep. And so you don't need to do a bone hierarchy basically. And that should be it. When we export this, we should have an exportable kind of thing. Now, the thing to bear in mind is that the scale of this might be completely wrong. In fact, it's almost certainly going to be wrong. So if we want to do something about that, you'll notice that if you go to the scale mode, you can scale the thing up or down, but it doesn't. It scales around the center of the. It scales around the center of the Jeep, which is not necessarily what we want. But we'll come and fix that once we've done the test export. So export this. Let's just select the stuff and then do File, Export Selected. I usually do Export Selected and then just let's just stick another new folder Jeep, and let's call Jeep size test. We don't really care about most of the stuff that we're going to look at in a minute. We don't want deforming dummies as bones because we haven't got any bones. We don't need animation. So triangulating smoothing groups needs to be on, and that should be it. So let's have a look at what it looks like in Unreal. Okay, so I've just imported it as a quick test, and as you can see, obviously the Jeep is way too small. Way too small. But that's not so much of a problem because we can always re-import it. So what I'll do is I'll delete that. I'll delete these because I don't want that. Don't want them cluttering after everything. Okay, so we need to make sure that our object, or all our objects really, is big enough. Now it could be that once you've scaled it, you need to do the don't know why I was doing that, the reset transform thing again. Oh, I'm so used to using Unreal's shortcuts now. So let's just stick this guy to the ground. What we want is we want the body of the Jeep to be in the center. So you can right click these little things to get 0, 0. Obviously the Jeep itself can be above the ground. So let's just keep scaling this guy up a bit. And then select all, and let's just export selected again. Okay. So when you import it into the when you import it, there's this option of import as skeletal. We can tick that on for the Jeep because what it's going to do is it's going to use the sub meshes, the sort of wheel meshes, as the skeleton itself, which is probably what that guy was telling you in the forums. Was so basically, let's just stick one of these guys in. Looks more like it, doesn't it? Maybe a little bit bigger. So sort of twice as big as it is now. Where does Max go there? So what we can do is we can go to modifiers. Is it modifiers? Tools. Can't remember what it's called now. Transform typing, that's the one. And we want 200%. There we go. So let's see what that does. So again, select everything, file, export, cancel that, file, export, export selected. I like to do export selected so that I don't accidentally export some other random stuff. And this one we can just try re-import. Oh dear. Why did that fail to re-import? Re-import mesh. Okay, let's just delete that for now then, and then see what the actual normal import does. So delete those. File, export, export selected, size test. Yes, we want to replace it. Now we want to import skeleton. Could not find a bind pose, which is fine because we haven't got a bind pose. Wait until it compiles the shaders. Check it for size. Looks about right, doesn't it? Yeah, I can live with that. Okay, so let's fix this guy up properly then. We can fix the materials anytime. So, what's the important part of the process for getting these guys set up? So look at the models. Actually, now there's something. That guy's not set up to go point straight down there. That's weird. Should have pointed straight down positive X. Okay, well, let's take this as correct anyway. So the main bit of setting up the car thing is this. What you should do is select all of those and then go on delete, because we don't want the default. Yeah, okay, saving some stuff. Okay, so we're going to set up the physics asset stuff ourselves. First thing is get the body, add new body. We want to not orient along the bone, and we want it to be a box. It doesn't particularly matter which way we want for this, but basically make a box. This is going to be the collision for our Jeep body, so we might want to sort of size it up and stuff, but for now let's just give it a bit of a scale down so it kind of roughly matches. Scale it up a little bit in that way. There we go. That'll do. The next part is the important part. So we want to add a sphere for each of the wheels. Well, that's kind of weird. That is very, very weird. Because obviously, why has it done that? Okay. Well, whatever. We need a sphere for each of the wheels. Now, the actual sort of yeah, it's in the center at least. So we can do that for each of these wheels, right? So we'll new body sphere. Yes, we do want to create joints. What possible? Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Okay, it's going to do the same thing for all of them. So what we can do is we can not click on that one because it's not going to show us. We can click on this and we can copy properties and then click on that and paste properties. And just do that for the same for all of ours. Now the one thing to look at here is the there's a physics type. We want to set the wheels to kinematic. It says in the documentation to use kinematic, but on their default it doesn't do that. So no idea if that's correct or not. The thing is that we're creating the joints for ourselves, so hopefully this is part of the setup that should do it. So we can just we should be able to just paste properties. Yeah, normally when I do this wheel thing I don't get it quite so big, so it could be just a weird setting somewhere. Paste properties again. So make sure these are both set to kinematic. So select one and kinematic, yep. and kinematic. Yeah, so they should be all right. Save that. If you simulate it, ooh, now there's interesting. That's very strange. Very strange indeed. We might need to get this guy and just scale him in so that he's not touching the tyres. Let's just try simulating that. No, it's definitely not that. Okay, let's scale it back up again. That's very strange, isn't it? Anyway, as it's not those guys, that's the problem. Actually, I didn't want to do that, did I? So, that is just a skeleton mesh, right? So if we look at the actual skeleton, and you select the Jeep, you should have the central Jeep thing and 4 bones. You don't need to call them this. It's just a sort of convention that seems to work. Alright, so final thing is that we want to take, if we look at the sedan, there's an animation blueprint that we need, so let's duplicate that. Call that Jeep anim BP and move that to our Jeep directory, and we want to duplicate the wheels, so let's duplicate that. Jeep back wheel and move that to our Jeep directory. And let's duplicate that one. Jeep front wheel and move that to our Jeep directory. And then finally we need to have a, so we'll call this Jeep. Should be alright, shouldn't it? And move that to here. Oh, okay, so there already is a Jeep, so let's call this Jeep. Alright, there's a Jeep material. Rename the Jeep material, go back to sedan, copy the Jeep. Okay, so this is basically just a blueprint class of wheeled vehicle. It's got all the setup stuff, so we copy that one. And all we need to do is change the mesh, so this guy here, to our Jeep mesh. And we want the animation blueprint, where did we call it? Jeep anim BP. Yep, so save that. So the thing about this is that it's the vehicle movement stuff that actually sets things up. We need to set up the wheels. So you'll notice here it's got the wheels and the wheel buttons. So for this mesh, what we should do is, let's have a look at the buttons. We've got rear right wheel, and we want our burn name in our vehicle movement component to be the same thing. So rear right wheel, and we want to use our Jeep back wheel. So rear left wheel and Jeep back wheel. So rear left wheel, rear right wheel, front right wheel, and then a Jeep front wheel, and then front left wheel, and a Jeep front wheel. So you can just add these if you need to do that. I think it supports up to 6 wheels. So what other things do we need to do to set it up? Well, there are a couple of parts that we can have a look at. These two are basically data blueprints. Now I'm not sure why it needs that collision mesh, because, well, we could always tell it to not create shape. But this is the thing that tells it how big the wheels are. This is the thing that's actually going to do the sort of collision setup. So this vehicle movement component is the thing that's going to actually do the movement, but it's going to use some of those properties from the wheels that is set up here as part of it. So what else do we need to do? We've got the Jeep. Let's just save it all for now. Oh yeah, the animation blueprint. So the animation blueprint is literally just the anim graph, and what you'll find is that you need the yeah, of course we've yeah, okay. When you create an anim blueprint, it sort of sets the type of thing it is. So let's just delete that for now. Remember what's in it though, right? So the anim graph has mesh space, ref pose, wheel handler, component to local, final input. In fact, let's just rename this one so we can keep it around. Let's call that temp Jeep anim BP, and let's just do another one. So animation blueprint, and the skeleton we're going to use is the Jeep size test skeleton. So the one we created basically. Now let's call this Jeep anim BP. So we need the same nodes as this setup. So we basically just copy those nodes into our blueprint. Oops. I know what I did wrong. Nope. Right, so where are we? Jeep anim blueprint. Let's just delete that one again because I did something wrong there. I'll show you why. Animation blueprint. It has to be based off it has to use this one, but it also has to be a vehicle anim instance. I think that's the one. Yeah. So you need to select vehicle anim instance and the correct skeleton, otherwise it won't have the wheel node. So Jeep anim BP. Yeah, because what we need is this wheel handler node, and this wheel handler needs to be have the parent class of vehicle anim instance, and we didn't have that before. So we could basically copy these into this guy, plug it in, and it should work as expected. Okay, so what else do we need? Well, that should, in theory, be it. Let's see how disastrous this one goes. It could be that the wheels are too small or too big, or like the physics is all balked or whatever. So let's set this guy to disabled for auto possess. Let's put an animated Jeep in there, a bit higher up. Oops, no, not animation blueprint. A Jeep in there. We'll see. It could be that I've not quite moved it down far enough. Why is there a camera there? Kind of weird, isn't it? It's got two cameras. Oh, that one's got two cameras as well. Well, whatever. And we set this guy to auto possess player 0. So let's just play. And yep, that looks like it's a Jeep. Ooh. So just try it again. And then shift F1 to eject out. Let's have a look what's occurring. Well, the wheels aren't touching the ground, which is probably not ideal. Still, and of course we can tweak all of the various parameters and stuff. Ooh. It could be that I've got the maths wrong on some of these things. Because this guy seems to not. Okay. Yes. One thing that might be useful to do is just to lengthen the camera arm. Oh, I see. Because it's so so you can actually have a view of the tires and stuff. So let's just try that now. Yeah, there's definitely something weird going on with the setup. But the wheels are definitely in the right place, so it's more to do with just eject out of there. In this case, it's probably more to do with the actual physics setup than anything else. So hopefully that's shown you what you need to do. So basically, in 3DSMax, let's just go over it again. 3DSMax, make sure your sort of car's selected. Go to schematic view, connect all of your tires to your car body, select it all, export selected, and then give it the name of your FBX file. Back in the engine, import the file, copy, make sure you've got an animation blueprint that's of type vehicle anim instance. Copy the different tires, and you can obviously change the tire sizes in there from the sedan. The skeleton should just import fine, and it's the physics asset that's probably causing some of these issues as well, to be honest. Let's just yeah, there's definitely something weird going on, because this guy is not moving as he normally would. So it could be that something about the way I scaled it up has done something bad. Oh, we've got a very... yeah, let's just see if the mass was a bit kind of crappy. It's just... no. See, that shouldn't be moving as fast as it is. So it's probably something to do with our max file, to be honest, when we exported it. So what we'll want to do is go back and just first of all unlink all of these things in the schematic view. So you can disconnect this guy, disconnect this guy, disconnect this guy, select this guy, reset selected, go to that, collapse to an editable poly again. Basically that clears out all of that sort of stack of transforms and stuff. We'll do the same for these. So reset selected, go to that, collapse to, do the same for all of the things. So once if you ever resize anything in 3ds Max, it's just a good idea to do this. Reset selected, collapse. And Maya does the same kind of thing with delete history, if I remember rightly, but I don't really use Maya. So collapse. There used to be another way of doing this called the box trick with 3ds Max, but I do it this way now. So you could do a script for yourself to do this. So then once we've done that, let's just relink them up again. So schematic view, connect, go, 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 and we're done. Export that and we should be fine. Yeah, so that's it really. Export selected, boink, boink, boink. Make sure that you don't have animation switched on. Smoothing groups will complain if you don't have it switched on. Smoothing groups and triangulate, basically the only things you really need. Scale factor of 1. We might want to use real world points, but basically, you know, you're not going to model this kind of stuff yourself. So, and that's it. Re-import that. Make sure that you've got your setup right, and it should be good to go. So there you go. Simple, well, simple-ish setup of a wheeled vehicle guy. And I'll see you later. If you've got any questions, obviously leave comments, send me an email, whatever. Thanks, and I'll see you later. Okay, so I've imported the textures and stuff for the vehicle. I'll just move the camera around a little bit just to show you it's working. One thing I did do is had to go and reset the transform, scale the vehicle a little bit again. Reset the transform all of the body mesh and the wheels, as I said before, and then the physics asset tool was a lot happier about the wheel sizes and stuff. You know, we had those big sort of physics meshes on the wheels. Well, it didn't happen this time, so I reset that up and it seems to be working just fine now. So there you go. You should be able to do that with pretty much any vehicle. Essentially just connect the meshes for the wheels under the mesh for the body in the schematic view, import it, have a look, see what happens, and if you've got any problems, just get back to me on the video or whatever. So there you go. Oop. Not the most stable vehicle in the world, let's face it. Vehicle physics is a little bit finicky in Unreal, but whatever. Sorted. Thanks for watching.